Welcome to HQ Spotlight right here on CBS Sports Network. Alongside Russ Thaler, I'm Tommy Tran. Lots to get to in this 90-minute show, Russ, but we do talk NFL. Monday Night Football, Saints and Packers to close Week 16.
No doubt. We're going to stick around to the end of the show because we're going to help everybody out there win some money on that game tonight. But we're starting things up by talking about the playoffs. Playoffs, indeed. In the aftermath of what we've already seen in Week 16, some things remain clear for all to see, like the Chiefs and Bills being the class of the AFC, Steelers, Ravens looming, and fighting it out to the finish for the North as well. The Bengals, Dolphins, Colts still have life and hope. The NFC presents an even more muddled picture with the number one seed up for grabs along with the North Division title. And the Eagles could have clinched the East, but after what went down in the DMV on Sunday, all bets are off. And as we wade into these waters of the NFL playoff scenarios, I am so happy to have Kyle Long and Pete Prisco here with us to help sort this all out. And Pete, I'm going to start with you. And we're going to start with the Eagles, who lost Jalen Hurts to a concussion early and then the game to the Commanders late. What did we learn about Philly on the outskirts of D.C. on Sunday?
Well, I think what we learned is that their defense had lapses in that game and wasn't as good as we expected. And remember, they went in as the top-ranked defense and had been dominant for the 10-game winning streak. And all of a sudden, they weren't. And when you needed stops, they couldn't get them. When they needed to get Jaden Daniels on the ground, they couldn't get him. When they needed to make a play late in the game, they couldn't do it. And that's the most disappointing thing to me, because the Eagles' defense, you know, we talk about Saquon Barkley, MVP season, we talk about their offensive line, but their defense had really come along, and Vic Fangio's scheme takes some time, and they seem to have grasped it, and then all of a sudden they didn't. And I think that's the most concerning thing coming out of that game, is they were unable to get stops and unable to slow down Jaden Daniels when they needed to.
Yeah, Pete, really uncharacteristic for this Philadelphia Eagles defense, who's led by Vic Fangio. I had the luxury of playing on a team that had to practice against Vic Fangio's defense every week, and his mantra has always been bend but don't break. One thing you can expect about this group is that they are not going to have lapses. And just like Pete said, that's what ended up costing them. Guys out of position in coverage, rush lane integrity going out the window. I mean, you're playing against Jaden Daniels, for Pete's sake. You got to understand that this guy can make you pay on the ground. And obviously, they were just mismatched in some situations. You can see those guys from the Washington Commanders going Louisiana style. That's by you on the back end. And Jaden Daniels, best in the league at the deep ball, in my opinion. So it was a recipe for disaster. Obviously, it hurt them that Jalen Hurts was out of the football game. They controlled the line of scrimmage early with Saquon Barkley. It all looked like it was going to be sunshine and rainbows for the Eagles. But this guy is out of a friggin' Halloween movie, Jaden Daniels, going down the field. As long as there's time on the clock, like my buddy Patrick Mahomes, you could be in very big trouble playing against the Washington Commanders. And that's what I saw from the Eagles.
Yeah, and the Eagles still in the driver's seat record-wise to win the NFC East, and the Commanders in a really good spot, not clinched, but a really good spot to make the postseason. Kyle, Vikings and Lions, they share the best record in the NFC. They control their own fate when it comes to the division title, the number one seed, and also home field advantage. Why isn't Minnesota being talked about in the same way as Detroit? I feel like it's been that way all season. And what are you looking for them in the last 2 weeks of the regular season?
Well, you know, I sit here and I talk power rankings and I talk fraud alerts every week with Pete Prisco, and he is a brilliant guy. And one thing that we were keeping our eye on is when Sam Darnold was going to turn into a pumpkin. Well, Minnesota Vikings fans this past week, they breathed a huge sigh of relief, because when their team needed it the most, in a game that, quite honestly, they should have won, they went and won it on the back of Sam Darnold and Justin Jefferson. You have to have a lot of confidence in this group. Obviously, well coached on both sides of the football. Brian Flores can attack your offensive line in so many different ways. Kevin O'Connell's going to have Sam Darnold ready to go out there looking like Peyton Manning week in, week out. He hasn't had any fall off. In fact, he's gotten better. And as for the Detroit Lions, you said people are talking about them in a different light than the Vikings. I think it's because of their body of work. They brutalized football teams for a long stretch of the season. Obviously not the same team playing defense for the Detroit Lions. I think that the Minnesota Vikings are the most dangerous team outside of that Green Bay Packers group in the NFC North.
Yeah, and when you look at the NFC North, all those teams are capable of beating each other, and particularly the way the Lions are constructed. I mean, I got to give the Lions a lot of credit. I didn't think they would go into Chicago and do what they did. They were dominant on offense, and they played solid defense, even though they gave up some yards to Caleb Williams. The thing about the Vikings, they can score. We know that. The weapons on the outside, Justin Jefferson, how do you shut him down? When you try and double him, then Addison gets going. I don't think we've seen the best of that weapon, those weapons there yet either. But here's the other thing, and I think Kyle mentioned this. You know, does Sam Darnold become Sam Darnold? And so far it hasn't happened. And I think we might be sitting here waiting for it to happen, and it's not going to happen because he's played so well, because Kevin O'Connell does such a great job with him. They're dangerous in large part because they can score, but also because Brian Flores throws so many different looks at you. And I think the one thing that might take them out of the whole thing down the stretch is, can you stop the run consistently? They're not big. They do it with different ways, but they're not a big defense, and I think that might be a problem for them down the road.
All right, Pete, let's move along in the NFC because we all got our first look at Michael Penix as the Falcons starter. Bucks losing on Sunday night put the ball back in Atlanta's hands when it comes to the NFC South. What do you think of Penix's performance and the Falcons' chances under the rookie?
It wasn't good. It wasn't bad. It just was. I mean, that's what you expect from a rookie quarterback. I think you throw him in there, and what do you expect him to do in his first start? Now it becomes, what do you expect him to do in his first start on the road? And that's the biggest, toughest challenge for any rookie quarterback. Being a team at the top of the division right now, now you have to go out on the road and play Washington. That's a tough game for a rookie quarterback. I thought he did some good things in the game. I thought he did some bad things in the game. It wasn't great. Did it set the league on fire? No. Did it set them back? Absolutely not. So we'll know more about Michael Penix this week when they go to Washington.
Yeah, it kind of feels like if one of those Little League teams went and they won the Little League World Series, which is like Michael Penix's Falcons beating the Giants, and then the very next week you got to go to Yankee Stadium to play against that vaunted 1-9 lineup. When I think about Jaden Daniels, that is the standard for a rookie, and Michael Penix did a fantastic job, in my opinion, getting thrust into that starting role as a rookie. It looked like the sequences were good. He had a firm command of the huddle. There was not a lot of pre-snap confusion. And I was on with Matt Ryan this morning, and he was equally as impressed with him. And I think that when you have a guy with his arm talent and his mobility relative to Kirk Cousins, it opens up a number of pages in the playbook that you gotta dust them off, because Kirk Cousins, he wasn't able to get it done. This is no indictment on Kirk Cousins. He's a guy coming back from injury. He's an elder statesman in that locker room. You get the young guy, you get some juice, anything can happen. But I do not see them beating the Washington Commanders. Jaden Daniels is playing a historic level of football as a rookie.
Yeah, look, Jaden Daniels is probably the torchbearer when it comes to rookies. When it comes to the NFL, the Kansas City Chiefs, they're the bar. But I'm getting kind of numb, Pete, in the various ways of pointing out that the Chiefs are maybe the least impressive statistically one-loss team ever, because they just win all the time. Patrick Mahomes' ankle, no problem. Injuries, next man up. Can anyone stop the Chiefs, Pete, other than the Chiefs?
No, I don't think so. You're probably going to be home for 2 games in the postseason. That's a giant advantage for the Chiefs. But more than that, I think moving Joe Thuney from left guard to left tackle has solidified the offensive line. I think getting Worthy and Hollywood Brown going, that's the most important thing in terms of the passing game. One thing you notice when you watch the Chiefs, they don't run very well. For most of this year, they've been playing in a phone booth. Well, now all of a sudden you add Hollywood Brown and you get Xavier Worthy going. You got to defend them differently. Those guys can stretch the field, and that changes the dynamic of the offense. When the line can hold up, and Thuney's done a nice job at left tackle, when they can hold up, there's going to be more big plays down the field. We haven't seen the best of the Kansas City Chiefs, and like I've said all along, nothing that happens in the regular season matters. Not for the Chiefs. It's all about the postseason. We saw that last year, and we're going to see it again this year.
You know, my older brother got the opportunity to play for Bill Belichick in New England, and he talked about how the mantra was kind of season doesn't start till after Thanksgiving. And for the Kansas City Chiefs, I think that might be even pushed further back in the season because, A, we've got Patrick Mahomes. B, we know we're going to be there. And these one-score games, more often than not, they fall into the hands of the Kansas City Chiefs. It's nice to see, to Pete's point, that the big red flag issue in Kansas City was that left tackle position. And they bumped Thuney out there, who was an all-pro guard. In my opinion, he's been the best offensive tackle on the football team since he signed in 2021. I was there when Orlando Brown Jr. went down at the left tackle spot. Joe Thuney had to fill in seamlessly, played a great game, and then they moved him back to left guard. I think that might be a contractual fiscal decision by the Kansas City Chiefs and Brett Veach, but there's no secret about it now. Joe Thuney is fantastic. Patrick Mahomes feels that much more confident. And as to can the Chiefs be stopped, just take a look at these powerhouses around the league. Philadelphia Eagles, they looked human yesterday. Buffalo Bills were down 2 scores to the New England Patriots at home. Any given Sunday, any stadium, anything can happen. The one thing you can't set your watch to is that Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs will be there when that does happen.
Yeah, Chiefs in a class by themselves when it comes to certainty on that. And on that end, certainty on that. And the teams without certainty, the teams on the outside looking in right now, but still with a chance. Kyle, which one of those teams should be feared the most and why?
Well, I think the one guy that nobody wants to see show up to the party is Joe Burrow. And it is almost criminal what the Cincinnati Bengals have failed to accomplish with what he has accomplished at the quarterback position this year. He has been nothing short of incredible. Week in, week out. You can see it at the bottom, the lower third. 7 consecutive games with 250+, 3+ passing touchdowns. He's a guy like Patrick where you can set your watch to his production. You just hope that this Bengals defense finds a way to pick up the slack, and obviously they're looking to get some help elsewhere. But if that Joe Burrow-led offense finds its way into the playoffs, oh my goodness, you don't want to see this guy show up.
Absolutely, I'm in agreement with you 100%. I mean, if his team was any good, he'd be in the MVP conversation. The year he's having is incredible. It's his best season ever. He's carried this team. Offensively, they're great. Defensively, not so much, and that's the reason why they need to win their next 2, which is essentially a playoff game this week against the Broncos, and then hope like heck you get help. In large part, they need Steelers to beat the Chiefs this week. They're rooting for the Steelers, and here's why. If the Chiefs win, they might not play their guys in the final week of the season. If that's the case, that's a big edge for Denver. They need Denver to lose twice, so they're rooting for the Pittsburgh Steelers. How ironic is that? Bengals rooting for the Steelers this week.
Pete Prisco and Kyle Long, gentlemen, your work is done here for now. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Russ.
And you can keep up with the NFL all the time with Kyle Long and Mike Renner. 4 times a week, combining analytics and passion for the game. Kyle and Mike breaking down the Week 16 results and pushing the conversation forward in their latest episode. They'll also get you into the latest mock draft. It's Pushing the Pile. Download and subscribe wherever you podcast, or just scan the QR code on your screen right now.